Welcome back. You found us again. All right, this week we're going to talk about the hike and coming out of the hike looking strong. One of the questions we got was, I've been told I don't look strong coming out of my hike, and is there anything we can do to help with that? So without further ado, Roger, can we help with that?
How's my hair?
That's pretty good. Okay. Well, this one's flaring a little bit.
So the rest of the question too, which was interesting, was this person was doing everything that he was recommended to do and it still didn't work. I think the things that people usually get recommended to do don't work.
Right. And
that's one of the problems with the hike. So the hike is a really tricky position to be in. We teach, when we teach swings, we teach the hike last for that reason, because it's hard enough to learn how to swing for some people, but then to start from the hike position in the beginning can be really challenging. So, you have to acknowledge that's a tricky position. A lot of times what people will recommend is they'll say, get your kettlebell, I forget what it's got to be a foot or whatever in front of you, and you grab it, and then you do some, you got to pack this or squeeze that or whatever. And then shift all the way back, okay? And hold that there. And the idea is that your hamstrings should be tight.
They are.
Okay, so cool. That makes sense. You can go ahead and pop up for now. The problem is that people don't necessarily talk about time when you're back there. So when we look at the stretch reflex, when muscles are stretched, they want to contract. So as you're shifting back, let's go ahead and let's actually, we want to watch this area right here, hip flexion. As he goes back, he's increasing his hip flexion, which means the muscles on the opposite side, his hip extensors, his hamstrings and glutes need to stretch a little bit. Now, ideally, that's going to be kind of a preload, and that's going to give you a little bit of a boost out of the hike. Go ahead and pop up so you're not exhausting yourself.
I just want you to know that I put myself in those positions for extended amounts of time on purpose so that when we're filming these videos, I can impress nobody.
So, one of the major issues with the hike is when people say get all the way back there and keep everything tight. That stretch reflex is you want a quick and strong exposure to that. The stronger the exposure and the less time between the stretch and then the movement that stretch is trying to help. So when we get into the stretch shorten cycle, we're going back to stretch the hamstrings because we want to contract the hamstrings. There's a phase between when the stretch happens and when the power happens. And let's say these two things are right here. This is going to be when stretch and power are right on top of each other. We have the most power, but as the stretch happens and there's more and more distance between the time you utilize that power, all of this space allows the energy that you've created through your muscle tissues that actually dissipates this heat. Energy needs to go somewhere. And if you create this energy and it's not being used immediately, it becomes heat, it changes into another state, then you don't have it. So one of the important things is not spending too much time back there, okay? Two, we like to, rather than have people go all the way back, we have people go back maybe 75%. So go ahead and, yeah, you got a good view there. So go back all the way. So let's show everybody what your max range, that's max. Now come forward about 25%, there we go. So he's still in a nice position. It's not like he's starting from standing and going right down in there. But what he's gonna do is he's gonna go that extra 25%, he's gonna shift back, and he's gonna make sure that stretch is nice and fresh. So he's gonna go from his position, shift back, and then he's gonna go immediately. You can swing, I'm not in the way.
Okay.
So, there we go. So what we do is we divide, we call it the swim and the shift. So we divide our hike into two phases. So first we do the shift, which gets you back in the hips. As the hips are coming back, then the connection between the arms and the lats to the upper and lower body, that kicks in, brings the bell back even more, so you get another fresh stretch. Those two things are linked together, and then the swing happens. Now, when you stay too long back there, you really don't have a lot of options, and what will happen is because you don't have any more of that stretch and those joints are kind of maxed out, what tends to happen is a rising up. So you don't have any more, you don't really have the same options, you don't have the same power from your hips. So what tends to happen is this right here pops up and you'll see the knee straighten. That's kind of a common thing, okay? Now, just to be clear, almost everybody on every rep with a decent sized bell is going to rise a little bit. It's not necessarily an error. It's not necessarily, gonna create injury. What you're doing is you're creating a little bit of room to generate potential energy. That's what you're trying to do. The problem comes when you are letting your hips rise before your back, because then you can't really get into your hips and you have to use your back. That's when you can potentially get into some issues. So if you're coming up, if you're here, and you're still have your shoulders over your hips and your knees are coming up a little bit, that's fine. But if you're here and you have this really deep torso position and then your hips come up, that's when there's problem. And that's the second thing we need to talk about is your ideal angle. We covered this last week. Is you want right now he's got to get down to the bell, but he's going to go ahead and do a couple swings. He's going to get down to close to about 45 degrees. A little bit more because of how he's built. If I swing, I'm going to be a little more upright because of my build. He's got longer legs than I do. But you see he's not going torso parallel to the floor. He's going down as low as he needs to go. Swings are solid. Why are you still swinging?
I love it so much.
So that's also a problem, is when people think they need to go all the way down here. So you're really, you bend just enough. You have your torso angle just enough to get the bell moving. So the suggestions then are to don't go all the way back into the swing, all the way back into the hike right away. Give yourself a little bit of room. So these numbers are kind of arbitrary, but we like to say go 75% and then save that 25% to get a little extra momentum. Add the momentum from the arms on top of the momentum from the hip shifting back. Then you're going to be nice and strong. You've got the stretch reflex and that stretch shorten cycle. You're going to get a lot of power right out of the hike. You're not going to need to go up. Going up is really just an indicator that you're probably weak in that position or a little lazy. Sometimes I do it just because. Yeah,
I've had plenty of lazy review. I'm like,
So it's really a problem only. It's really a problem only if you put yourself in a position where you're likely to use your back, and that is really going to come down to torso angle. If you have that really steep kind of 90 degree, there we go. Like if that's where you are, then you don't really have much of an option but to straighten your knees. And as soon as the knees straighten, push up here. So now the hips are higher than the back. He can't really use his hips until his back gets up here, and he needs to use his back muscles to do that. That's problematic.
Yeah, and plus, like, if you're in this position, I can't even see what's going on, So chances are, if you just bring those eyes up a little bit, you might find yourself in a better position off the get-go. And, there's sometimes people are caught in that position of looking straight at the ground. There's nothing interesting down there, trust me.
Sometimes.
I guess sometimes Roger says, but probably not. Anything else?
No, I think that's about. We can ramble on longer, but I think that's sufficient. We answered the question.
Yeah, get your questions in and we'll answer them. Whether we give you the whole answer or some of the answer, different story. Just kidding. We give you the whole answer every time. No? Okay.
There's more.
Every time, some of the times. Anyways, hey, if you want to know more, if you got some specific things you want answered, we're happy to take a little long form with them. Go ahead and comment with a question, message us, email us. You know how this works. And have a great day. Stay strong.